You're autistic or if somebody that you know and love is autistic, it's very important that you understand what PDA is. PDA is pathological demand avoidance, or some people call it pervasive drive for autonomy. And I actually like the second name a little bit better because it makes it easier to understand. So PDA is when an individual has a strong visceral reaction to a perceived demand. And it can make the person look like they're rude. It can make somebody look like they're stubborn and they're ignoring you. But it's not that. It's more so that their autonomy is being threatened. That's how it feels to them. And the reason why autonomy is so important when we're talking about autism is because autism means that the way that you communicate with the world is different from how a neurotypical individual would communicate with the world. So because of these differences in communication, an autistic individual is going to need some level of external support to thrive and to do well in this neurotypical world, right? So even the person who we would refer to as a high-functioning autistic individual or level 1, that person will still need some level of external support. So these are the people who, they work jobs and they're in relationships and they look like they have it all together, even though they have autism. You just don't see the external support that they have to get in order for them to thrive, right? So for any autistic individual, because autonomy is so important and because there's some level of external support that you are going to need, when there's a demand, a perceived demand that threatens your autonomy, that right there is extremely frustrating. Autistic individuals spend their whole life fighting for autonomy, and it's very difficult to be an adult and to need things from other people. It can be very embarrassing, and we all need support in this life, but when you're autistic, the external support that you need is crucial. So when something threatens your autonomy, that thing, even though the person on the other end doesn't realize that this demand is threatening the autistic person's autonomy, when you are the person who feels like your autonomy is threatened, you are probably going to shut down. And what happens after that is what autistic people get punished for. So many kids get punished in school because it looks like they're not turning their homework in on time. It looks like they're not playing with other kids. It looks like they're not engaging. They're not doing what's asked of them. And this is why an early diagnosis is so important, because if you have a kid who's undiagnosed, he's on the spectrum, and the teacher's asking him to do certain things, nobody can see that the child's autistic, and being asked to read things out loud or to turn in certain assignments or to do these things around class is a perceived threat to that person's autonomy. And that person is doing their best to express their frustration, but it may come out as, the person being rude and them being stubborn. And normally you get punished for that as a kid. Likewise, when you are in a relationship, if you are, let's say, splitting the chores with your partner, and you say, hey babe, you mind getting the dishes real quick? Let's say your partner was already on their way to the kitchen to do the dishes. Just because you told them, hey, can you do the dishes? Now they feel like it's a demand. And because they perceive it to be a demand and it threatens their autonomy, them not doing that task is their way of retaining their autonomy and feeling autonomous. I hope that makes sense. And when it comes to PDA, it's not just things that are asked of you by other people, but it can be things that you know that you have to do yourself. So if, for example, good example right here, these are my retainers. I have to wear these Vivera retainers every day so that way my teeth don't space apart, and go back to where we were, right? We don't want that. So if you have to wear retainers every night and you feel like it's a demand, it could threaten your autonomy. And there are nights where I don't wearing my retainers, and it gets frustrating to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. But if your brain is telling yourself, okay, we gotta wear our retainers, we gotta brush our teeth, we have to do this, we have to do that, it can feel like it's perceived demand, like you have to do this thing. And then, you can say, oh, well, I'm behind on this, I'm behind on that. Do I have to wear my retainers? If I have to wear my retainers, then, I'll do my best to wear them. But because I now have to wear them, I may skip wearing them on some nights just to feel like I can do what I actually want to do and be okay. Autonomy is so important, and the way that you say things to your autistic loved ones is extremely important. And we can take it a step further. When you're talking about PDA, if you have to use the restroom, and you're trying to hold your pee in, and your brain is telling you, okay, we need to go use the restroom because we have to empty our bladder. Depending on how the autistic person processes that information, they can feel like, oh, it's a demand, like I have to go and pee. And you know that you will go pee at some point, but you may hold your pee in a little bit longer just to prove to yourself that, hey, I can do things on my own and I can go pee when I want to pee. I don't have to pee when my brain signals to myself that I have to go pee. So for neurotypical people, I think this concept can be very difficult to understand. And I like to tell people, hey, if you are somebody who you have to have duct tape around your mouth for 24 hours, it's going to be hard for you to communicate. So you're going to be frustrated. So you have to understand that when it comes to autism, the way that an autistic individual will communicate is different. So because they need help to account for the differences in communication, the external support that is required makes you feel like you're not autonomous and that you can never be independent, which is a lie. You can be independent with some level of external support. But just knowing that you rely on other people for support and fighting for autonomy your whole life, it gets very difficult and is very draining. So if you are somebody who knows, or if you have an autistic loved one, or if you are autistic, explain this to your people. The people in your life can go a long way. This can save relationships. It can save relationships because, as you know, in relationships, it's not really the big things that break up people. Big things can break up people, but sometimes the small things that frustrate you. Like, I told my partner to do this, and it was a clear thing that I asked him to do. Clear as day. I asked him to wash the dishes. I asked him to park the car in the garage and get it off the street. I asked him to take out the trash, but they keep forgetting to do it, or they just won't do it, and it'll look like the person is being defiant. And you'll be frustrated, and perhaps rightfully so. But on the other side, that person is fighting for their autonomy, and this is a fight that they've been going through their whole life. So I think empathy and understanding where the other person is coming from is key, because when you understand PDA, the way that you talk to your autistic loved ones will change. The way you talk to your autistic kids, if you're a school teacher, will change. And you will see the improvements in your interpersonal relationships the more that you understand PDA. So I hope this video helps, and it helps to clear up the confusion about PDA.